Tap tap. Is this thing on? Are we recording yet?
Testing 1, 2, 3. I think we are.
Yep, I think we're there. Okay, well.
The Monster Guys podcast begins now.
Welcome to the Monster Guys podcast. I am DC McGannon, and I have a cup of tea.
And I am Michael McGannon, and I don't have...
Michael, you should have a cup of tea with you.
I have a bottle of water. Does that count?
I guess. You can have some water. That's fine. But I'm sipping on some ginger tea today. And I'm sure everybody needed to know that and needed to hear me sipping my tea. And I'm sure they're hearing every bit of you opening and closing your bottle right there.
I have to join in the festivities.
Yeah. Festivities it is today, being so close to Christmas. We are going to talk about some Christmas festivities and Yule festivities and some different things associated with this time of year.
Just days away, so we need to know what to do.
We need to know what to do, so the Monster Guys are here to help you. We are here to explain to you why we do certain things and help you celebrate Christmas more educated. Is that right?
I think so. Now, I have a question.
Okay.
Why does he go down the chimney?
Well, it depends. I mean, who you're talking about. But why does he go down the chimney? Well, I don't really want to get into that conversation because that has to do with a lot of different personalities, from Santa to Krampus to Ashen Claus to the gift-bringing witch of Italian descent or Italian festivities. A lot of different people and origins of that story. But we're not going to go there because I don't think any of our listeners are going to be climbing down a chimney. Instead, they may need help knowing why they're singing carols, or what carols to sing, or standing under a mistletoe, and when and if they should be kissing under that mistletoe, and for what reason. So we're going to talk about it in stockings, hanging stockings. Why do we do it?
That is a strange tradition.
It is a strange tradition, but it's fun.
It is.
And I think knowing a little bit more about our traditions, whether it's Christmas or Yule, whether it's here in America or in Europe or somewhere on a different part of the world, it just makes a lot more fun doing it.
All right.
To go back, we're actually a couple of days late posting a podcast because we actually already recorded a podcast this week.
Yeah, that was a tangled mess.
It was a tangled mess, not as far as our recording, but the content itself. We actually did a recording about Santa and Krampus and their associated companions during this time of year. We go back to some origin stories, some legends, and all kinds of stuff. But what we discovered at the end of recording that podcast is it wasn't really our style, the way it came across.
Not the way we roll.
Not the way we roll as true original gangsters. So we kind of pulled back on that one. It's good content. I think it's some good information. And what we might do is actually release that as an addendum, as an extra Monster Guys, maybe college lecture type extra or something.
That'd be fun. And I personally would like to revisit it too, because I think it's just a very rich topic.
It is. We had a lot of really good content, a lot of really good, not a whole lot of discussion, but more, like I said, a college lecture where we were presenting some information going pretty far back on both sides of the Santa and both sides of the Krampus fences. So it was good stuff, but we're not going to release that one. I might actually just release that as some raw audio for people to dig into a little bit. And we'll see. We'll see if anybody really wants it, or maybe when we get it up, how people respond to it. Who knows, Michael? We may have to change our style and become college lecturers once again.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too. But here we are. We're going to talk about some Christmas and or Yule traditions from various parts of the world. And we're going to start with the hanging of the stockings.
All right, starting off on the right foot. Or left sock, maybe.
Oh, you caught me while I'm sipping my tea with your puns. I almost spewed on the computer. Yeah, so we're going to start off with the right and left feet. And in this case, we're going to start off with all 8 feet. How about that?
I believe you're talking about a certain horse belonging to Odin.
I am talking about a certain horse. Before we get to Odin and his horse, though, let's talk about St. Nicholas and the story surrounding St. Nicholas, the 4th century Greek bishop, Christian bishop, and the story of the 3 daughters that he provided for.
This is actually one of my favorite stories about St. Nicholas, and it's one that I remember hearing a little bit of as a kid. There's a story of 3 daughters that... Well, let me start with the dad. So dad was nearing his old age, and he was concerned about what was going to happen to his daughters once he, started to pass away, because he was poor and did not have money for dowries for each of them. And back then, it was pretty common practice to sell kids into servitude so that they had, at least something of life.
It was that's a sad commentary, but it nonetheless was a reality.
So not being able to marry them off and let them have normal lives, he was prepared to sell each one into servitude, and some stories even go so far as to say prostitution. But St. Nicholas heard of this and would not have any say of it. The stories do say that the dad was kind of not prideful, but he didn't want to accept help from St. Nicholas. And
St. Nicholas, going back to a previous discussion that has already been recorded that's not being released currently, we know him as a gift bringer and as a pastoral type of... he was actually a monk, from what we believe, that was raised to the level of bishop by the acclamation of the people because of his good deeds. And he was known very much from the old Christian terminology to be a shepherd of the flock.
Yeah.
So he took care of people and sought out ways to do good for people. And this story with this father and these 3 daughters is one of those stories.
Yeah. So he heard about what was going on and trying to figure a way out to be sneaky about it and still help the father.
Sneaking of the gifts. Sneaking around making gifts.
Yeah. He actually
sound familiar?
Yeah, and this is going to have a couple different variations. The first one I'll tell is through the window. He actually just dropped this one through the window.
Okay.
But St. Nicholas basically came by with these bags full of golden coins or golden balls, depending on the story, and dropped it in there, and it was enough for a dowry. And the dad immediately started looking for a husband for his first daughter. He thanked God and hoped that something similar would happen in the following year. Well, it did. St. Nicholas came back, dropped more coins through the window. Again, the father was able to find a husband for his second daughter. The third year, he suspected it would happen again, so he actually stayed up at night this time. And the third year comes around, St. Nicholas comes back, drops the coins or the balls of gold through the window, and this time the dad gets up and runs and chases St. Nicholas down in the streets just to say thank you. And St. Nicholas accepts the thanks and just asks the dad basically not to let anybody know, that he did this in secret to help him out. And so
sounds to me like a religious leader who actually was doing the right thing for a change, as opposed to a lot of what we see in today's media and modern practice.
He walked his talk, I guess you could say. An interesting story variation, and scholars kind of argue about why there are these variations, but one variation of the story is that he, instead of dropping it through the window, St. Nicholas actually snuck in to where they were drying their socks by the fire, hanging up on the mantle, and he would place the gold inside those socks.
I'm starting to see a correlation here.
Yes. Her name is, I believe, I'm going to try to say this, her name is Phyllis Siefker.
Phyllis Siefker.
Phyllis Siefker put forth that this actually merges with, or that it did merge with an older story of Odin.
Okay.
Odin had a moment where he was a gift bringer.
Okay.
He would dress in a...
Yeah, he had kind of a dual nature. Just like many of the characters that we talk about, there's a dual nature there. Odin was known as a gift bringer as well as...
warrior and
punisher.
And
and one who disciplines, so...
god of madmen, hanged men, lunatics.
Yeah, so one of his characteristics is that of a gift bringer.
Yeah, he would dress in a blue cloak and ride his 8-legged horse, Sleipnir.
Which, by the way, let me stop you just for a second, because I saw a post today on Facebook where there was a photo of a quote-unquote Santa Claus dressed up in a green robe and one dressed up in a blue robe, and somebody commenting on that was, I don't know if they were upset or just excitedly confused, but it was kind of like, why does Santa not have the red? And it actually was, this Santa Claus was dressed up and representing some different European traditions. So it was actually very accurate, because we have green cloaked Santas, or I say Santas, but I'm saying that for reference point. But we have the green cloak, we have the blue cloak, we have the red cloak from St. Nicholas, the bishop, and which even moving forward today, we have that red-clad Santa, rotund, jolly, Coke-drinking dude.
I think that red red coat was something that became more solidified in 1863 by Thomas Nast. But that's something that people will hear in that discussion that we may or may not release. So you may or may not find out from us.
I don't know. We might just leave you hanging until next year, hanging over the. We might just leave you hanging like a stocking.
Oh, now you've started it.
My puns are getting pretty strong.
They're warming up.
Oh my gosh. Let's move on.
Anyway,
St. Nicholas,
so
he catches them hanging their stockings, their socks.
Odin...
Odin we already talked about that. You moved on to Odin.
Yeah, Odin would bring bread and stuff to families during Yule because it was a cold, harsh month.
Nice guy bringing bread.
Right, then and there, yes, not always. They had to put straw or hay in their boots for Odin's 8-legged horse, Sleipnir. The slippery horse.
Yeah, and I was going to say, that translates in Old Norse to slippery, or the slippery one.
And so...
Which plays quite a bit into his mythology, but the horse's mythology, but nonetheless, we're going to Odin and
it's a fascinating horse all to itself, and many people believe that's where the reindeer got their start.
Yeah, because he's an 8-legged horse. Did you say that?
That flies around.
Kind of similar. Yes. Does he have a red nose?
No.
Okay.
He's white, I think.
I do know that there is a place in Iceland, though, that is kind of almost like a canyon that's in the shape of a horseshoe. And one story goes that they believe that is a place where Sleipnir landed or placed his foot on the earth at one time.
Which is pretty darn cool.
And it's pretty big, so that would be pretty darn scary.
It needs its own guitar solo.
Epic air guitar solo happening right here while you continue about the socks or the shoes being left out.
Yes. So anyways, as I was saying, kids would leave their boots out with
air guitar happening in the background.
Guitar solo that people can't see.
By the way, I don't like all these spiders that you put up here in the studio.
Well,
I think you
have spiders on your side. I have a window on my side. We're
These
even.
Are nasty creatures. Okay, he left out. The children would leave out shoes. For Odin's horse.
And already bringing gifts, Odin would actually now bring more gifts. And as the straw was eaten, he would leave in their shoes candy or treats instead, or berries and nuts traditionally. And so you had a tradition start. And further on down the line, St. Nicholas's bones were actually stolen at one point and brought to, or part of his skull, I should say.
Part of his skull, yeah.
And brought to Italy. And
part of his skull, part of his skeleton, part of his bones.
He had a bone to pick with him. Anyways, they brought some of his bones to a temple in Italy where there was a grandmother cult. And this cult of this grandmother goddess actually carried on a similar tradition of leaving treats and stuff in shoes for children. And so you have these three things kind of merge and carry on over the years until today we have these stockings that you actually go buy at Walmart and hang up.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we need to start making our own and leaving out shoes and go back to some old style traditions. That would be fun, even if it was for a year or two.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay, well, Michael, let me stop you right there. I got a question for you. Michael, did you know the story of why we leave out cookies and milk at Christmas?
I don't.
There are several reasons, and I'm going to enlighten you.
Okay, should I get some cookies and milk with it?
Well, it might help. It might put you in the mood or give you a little bit more of experience of the moment. But there are several different ideas surrounding this tradition. One of them is linked to St. Nicholas himself, the bishop of Myrna, the Greek bishop. During the tradition of the feast of St. Nicholas, which happens on December 6th. Again, we talk about that in another recording that we may or may not release. We'll see. Suffice it to say, he has his own day and his own festival, December 6th, the date of his death as a saint. Children would leave food and drink for the saint and his attendants. And the next day, these milk and cookies or these treats would be exchanged for gifts overnight. Sound familiar?
It does.
Leave the milk and cookies out for Santa. The next morning, maybe those have been nibbled on, or the milk had been consumed, and there's gifts under the tree. There's also one that is linked to the history of the Christmas tree, which we know the tradition of the Christmas tree comes from Germany. O Tannenbaum, O Tannenbaum. The history of the Christmas tree in Germany, people would decorate what they called a paradise tree with apples and wafers and pastries and whatnot. And often Santa, or the person that was the gift bringer in their traditions, would actually come in and snack on those treats that were on the tree and leave gifts in exchange for those treats and apples and fruits and everything. Later on, that tradition merged with Christianity a little bit, when Christianity also picked up the tradition of the Christmas tree and all that surrounding the tree. And later on, snacks were no longer used to decorate the Christmas tree, but regular ornaments. And then it became a plate of snacks and milk, or a plate of cookies and milk that were left out, with the idea of leaving snacks for Santa to get him to hang around a little bit when he dropped off the gifts.
That's pretty cool.
It is.
It also kind of reminds me of the Tomte and the Nisse and the porridge that they leave out during Yule for them.
Right, and we talked a little bit about Yule Grot and stuff a few episodes ago, and there's another legend around the cookies and milk. And it was leaving cookies and milk for Santa that could be linked to Norse mythology. That's hard to say, Norse mythology. You want to say North mythology.
Well, it's in the North anyway.
Yeah, well, so linking it to Norse mythology, people, like you were talking about, would leave treats for Odin's 8-legged horse, and later that tradition was handed down to Dutch children, who would leave out treats for Father Christmas and his horse, which is a whole nother realm of tradition stemming from some of these stories.
Another layer of the Santa legend.
Another layer, and there are many layers. There's another interesting tradition based here in America, and that is around the Great Depression. During this time, parents wanted to inspire their children to share and to give. And so what they would do is they would leave out snacks for Santa Claus and his reindeer in hopes of teaching them to share with others in exchange for those gifts as well. So there's a lot of little intricacies to the whole cookies and milk thing. I think there's one even further back, coming from, I believe even a pre-Catholic tradition, but it's about leaving wine and morsels of food out for the Virgin Mary in hopes that she would appear on Christmas Eve and give a blessing while we're waiting to celebrate the birth of the Christ child.
If the parents were in on this one, I'm sure they didn't mind helping. Make that wine
I'm sure they did not mind the wine at all. And it would have been a much different type of wine than we know today, which I've had some similar wine, and it's pretty tasty. But so there's a lot of interesting thoughts around this whole tradition of cookies and milk. But now you know.
Now I know.
So moving on from that, we want to talk a little bit about the mistletoe, because there's some interesting, today it's just stick the mistletoe up under a door so we can snag a kiss from somebody we want to snag a kiss from.
Yeah.
It's been used as a party favor and a party game as well, but there's some real history to the mistletoe.
Yeah, that party idea, or the being used in a party, was started as far back, I believe, as 1800s, when the middle class in England would, use it to steal a kiss from a girl, and to refuse that, if you were caught under the mistletoe, was actually considered bad luck at the time. But there was a rule to it as well. Basically,
yeah, and that today, by the way, has moved into the tradition of it's not been a very good or well received, because trying to force that kiss on somebody in party situations when people are drunk turns into some ugly scenarios, but it started out quite innocent.
Yeah, and there was a rule to it as well. There were, every time you snagged the kiss under the mistletoe, you were supposed to take a berry off of that twig. Mm. And once all of the berries were gone, that was it. You couldn't steal a kiss anymore. So it was a bit of a game, actually. But the tradition of mistletoe being associated with Yule and Christmas goes back pretty far, all the way back to the Druids, and some would say farther back than that as well. But the Druids believed, because this plant blooms during even the frosty months, that it was a sign of fertility. And so they would actually use it in their healing rituals. They would use it to restore fertility to people. Some even say that they used it to help animals. There's also a story in old, again, Norse mythology, of Baldar, the god of light, and Loki. Baldar was almost invincible. Mm-hmm. Basically, Baldar's mother, Frigg, had gone around and tried to talk to all the plants and the animals and the rocks of the earth and said, basically, don't kill my son. So he was invincible to most things. Well, she forgot the unassuming mistletoe, so Loki actually made a dart out of this stuff and killed Baldar.
Made a dart?
Out of the mistletoe.
Was it, I don't know, was it like a...
It was an arrow, really.
Arrow?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
He died. Later, he's brought back to life, and the gods were so happy about it. Frigg, particularly, being a goddess of love, was so happy that her son was back to life that she made a vow that the mistletoe would never be used as a weapon again. And she vowed that whoever would pass under the mistletoe, she being a goddess of love, would stop and give them a kiss.
So we have quite a variation on this story of the mistletoe, from party games, snagging that kiss,
all the way to rituals.
All the way to
rites.
Ritual sacrifice and fertility practices among the Druids, all the way to Norse mythology and the story of Frigg and her son.
Yeah.
Some interesting thoughts around that. And it's interesting to see how that is assimilated into modern day. It's really been trivialized to a modern day party favor, so to speak.
And it's such a sacred plant to them, as well as kind of fun and interesting
the
to
leaves
see.
and the berry, and mistletoe was considered to be quite rare among people during the first century, and that's why the Druids would go, the priest would actually climb the tree and specifically look for that rare piece that he would cut off to be used in that ritual. So it goes, once again, we've taken some very significant and important traditions, no matter where it comes from, and kind of trivialized it in our modern day. And it may be good to remember some of the old days and where it came from, at least before we hang up that mistletoe and go looking for that kiss, and remember the sacredness of what that kiss is supposed to mean.
Right. And, hey, speaking of trivia, DC, did you know...
Oh, what am I to know?
Did you know that the 8 reindeer of Santa, 2 of them in particular, actually have changed names over the years?
Yeah, well, I do. I do know that, and I know that because you shared it with me.
I have.
So now you're going to share it with me again.
I am, but that's behind the scenes.
Oh.
People don't know that.
People don't know. Oh, I'm sorry. So, no, I don't know, Michael. What? I mean, could it be Donder and Blitzen?
Yes. Donner and Blitzen. How did you know?
Guess.
That is a very good guess.
It's a good guess.
Some of the weirder names, I guess. Well,
it's my educated guess.
Their names aren't as weird as Prancer, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, maybe it's not too weird for Reindeer. I mean, he's prancing along. But
and as a side, Rudolph was not one of the original.
He's not. He's a shiny new invention.
Unfortunately, people believe. But anyway, Rudolph was not there. But however, Donner and Blitzen,
yes.
I'm sorry, Donner. See, I know a little bit too much. I'm giving it away.
Yes. So their names were actually originally Dutch words, Donder and Bliksem.
Donder and Bliksem, and that's Blix.
Yes.
So Donder and Bliksem.
Donder and Bliksem in Dutch mean thunder and lightning. So Santa had some heavy metal reindeer.
Some pretty intense reindeer. I wonder where that comes from.
You have Prancer out on the disco floor, and then you've got thunder and lightning up at the helm or something.
It all works together, especially at Christmas time.
Heck yeah. I don't know. There are some people that believe that, again, it goes back to Odin and Sleipnir, and some people actually think that it goes back to Thor, because Thor had 2 goats, whose names were not Thunder and Lightning, but Thor being a thunder god.
Right.
Some people believe that some inspiration was taken when those names were created in the 18th century. Not the 18th century, I'm sorry, the 1800s.
Right, and I think some of these stories lend toward the Wild Hunt as well.
Yes, which I cannot wait to do a podcast on.
We'll do a podcast on the Wild Hunt and all that at some point. But
yeah, DC, now you know.
Now I know. Thank you very much. I am enlightened.
The more you know.
Now when I look to the sky and sit on the roof looking for the great pumpkin, the reindeer to come in a couple of nights, I'll know who I'm going to be asking for by name.
Still looking forward to Halloween there.
I am. I'm always looking for the great pumpkin. Let's go on to our next Christmas or Yule tradition, and that would be the singing of Christmas carols.
Are we talking about you know what I haven't heard in a while?
What's that?
Any Lovecraftian Christmas carols?
Yeah, well, look on themonsterguys.com. I think we have an entire post of nothing but Lovecraftian Christmas carols with their videos along with it.
It's beginning to look a lot like Fishmen.
Yeah, and I think I actually just maybe a couple of weeks ago, reposted that on our Facebook site too. So
Yeah.
should be easy access if anybody wants to go listen to some Lovecraft Christmas carols. Kind of scary.
It'd be fun to go house to house doing that, though.
Yeah, fun for us, but not for... Knock, knock, knock. Hi, do you have a moment to speak about our Lord and Savior Cthulhu and sing to them of great terror?
It'd be fantastic.
So, and one of the things about caroling is it's not really done a lot anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. The door-to-door... I don't know if it's just because of how spread out everything is. But...
Well, I think part of it is how far everything is spread out, but I think people, have increasingly become polarized and insulated, and there's just not a lot of people who know a lot of neighbors anymore. And you think about people going caroling, you get random strangers knocking on your door. In this day and age, it tends to be a little fearsome, which is unfortunate. But I do know that we just had some family members in Florida go caroling. I think last night or the night before, they went around their neighborhood with the kids and with your Lolo, your grandfather,
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't
with
know
the
that.
guitar, and yeah, they were out doing some caroling. So it's still alive, but it's not like it used to be.
I don't remember the last time we went caroling.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I mean, I can't remember myself. But the history of Christmas carols is very interesting, and it actually did not begin as a Christmas event or activity. It was actually a pagan ritual. You go all the way back to hundreds and even thousands of years ago. Pagans used to, at the winter solstice especially, would sing songs around great stone circles. Any stone circles come to mind?
Stonehenge.
A lot of stone constructions like that and stone circles were used for a lot of rituals and worship and various activities. Well, caroling was one of them. Carol, the word carol, actually meant to dance or to dance with something. And so pagans would actually write songs celebrating the solstice and the various things associated with this time of year. And what's interesting is actually before it became a Christmas thing, pagans would write songs during every season of the year. And so the caroling was something that took place throughout the year based on the seasons. As time went on, it kind of just fell back to the winter solstice, and when early Christians began to kind of assimilate and use some of pagan practices in their own religion and their own worship activities, it became more of a Christmas thing at that point. And fell back to just a Christmas event.
That actually answers a couple questions. A friend of mine asked the other day why we don't have Thanksgiving songs like we have not Halloween songs. Those too, though.
Yeah.
Somebody was
Right.
asking why we don't have songs for holidays like we do for Christmas.
Yeah, and this is, and probably we used to, because it was based on the season, the wheel of the year, so to speak,
Right.
as opposed to any particular holiday. It was based on seasonal times of the year and the celebrations, maybe around harvest or the solstice or different things like that. And so these carols, or actually they were just songs that were written during these times, and the caroling part was actually dancing. It meant to dance with something. So they would sing songs and dance around these stone circles.
Which is funny considering how, if you see a group of carolers, they're usually standing stock still.
Yeah, well, and what happened is, throughout time, like during the Dark Ages, during the Middle Ages, the Christmas celebrations really almost stopped. People became disinterested in celebrating Christmas, and as a result, they weren't singing a whole lot. During even the pagans had kind of stopped a lot of the dancing and singing activities during the different times of the year. I think there was a Roman emperor or maybe a bishop or somebody who declared that they wanted a song sung during this time of year, but it was very minimal and very few and far between that you would have people actually singing and dancing. Now you fast forward to the 1200s, and you've got St. Francis of Assisi that comes in, and he starts doing these nativity plays in Italy. And basically it was a show, a procession of sorts that was depicting the the movement of Mary and Joseph toward Bethlehem and the birth of the baby Jesus, and then the angels and the shepherds and all that kind of stuff. It was kind of a reenactment of some of those texts in the Bible. And during that time, what he was doing, instead of speaking parts, there were singing parts. These were called canticles, and it leads us to what we have a modern day event called the cantata in music and theater. So we have this singing of events to depict certain things in history. Well, this became very popular, and once again, people wanted to sing songs. They wanted carols, they wanted festivities, people became interested in Christmas again, so they began writing carols again. If you go all the way back to the beginning of all this, obviously the pagan songs were not about Christ.
Right.
They were about events on the calendar, they were about harvest, they were about natural things in their world. So when they started writing these carols again later, after these nativity plays, and people became interested in Christmas again, they would start writing carols about Christmas. And throughout Europe, people wanted songs to sing during this time of year, so they actually started developing choirs, writing songs for this period. I Saw Three Ships is a great example. Good King Wenceslas is another good example of this. And so what they would do is start writing these songs and then gathering as choirs either in the town square or in their neighborhoods, and then that developed to where people would have almost a roving choir or a walking choir singing these songs. And it got very far away from the original what carols were and became much more of a Christianized and a Christmasized version of that activity.
It would be cool to try to recreate that whole process for things like Halloween.
What process?
Writing Halloween carols.
Yeah, and
I mean, we still walk door to door, so it'd be easy enough to do.
Yeah, it would. And what's interesting is that there are a lot more songs being written for Halloween and harvest time and different things like that. So it wouldn't be too far-fetched. I think we talked about it this Halloween of, putting on music that was themed for the season.
Right. And there is plenty out there, but creating carols, that same feeling of a group of people getting together and doing it.
Sometimes we've done it when we've DJ'd events. We've pulled out a good stock of Halloween-themed dance music and everything. But, you're going trick-or-treating, why not? Mm-hmm. I think it'd be cool just to see some random trick-or-treaters just singing door to door.
Have like 5 people walking in a group as
little children singing about beheading of monsters and witches flying around and blood and guts and zombies. That'd be pretty cool.
Do an a cappella version of Thriller.
Acapella version. That would be awesome. But anyway, and one of the other things that happened before carol singing became popular again, there were sometimes official carol singers called waits. And these guys, W-A-I-T-S, these guys were local leaders, important people in the town who would lead a group of carolers house to house, and they would collect money from the public, I think for charity, if I'm not mistaken. And this was done on Christmas Eve, and this was sometimes known as the watch night or the wait night, because it was reminiscent of the shepherds watching and waiting in the fields, for the announcement from the angel and all that kind of stuff in Christian story. So this, is a pretty big thing that's going on coming out of the Middle Ages and going into Victorian periods and everything else. It's revived, and, for a long time, it was a very popular holiday and Christmas tradition, and it's kind of died out again. I think just because, again, people are becoming insulated and kind of boxed into their own little worlds and don't get out much.
Well, I think you've seen different processions going on through the years, and I think you'll probably see a new version. If people don't just take up caroling again, kind of a new version arise not too long from now. I can't remember what age this was, but a long time ago, the Yule goat, as we've talked about a little bit before, was kind of a scary figure, but there was a point in time when people weren't scared of it anymore, and it became more of a household prank towards people. And eventually another tradition started where people would dress up as the Yule goat. They would disguise their voice, their body language, and themselves dressing up as this goat-like figure, and they would start going door to door in their neighborhoods.
Seems a little scary.
It is as a Yule or Christmassy tradition, but it's kind of cool. It was almost like a game of sorts. They would come in, knock on the door, drop off a couple gifts, but then people from the house had to guess who it was. So, can you imagine this giant goat guy standing in your doorway and you're like, Bob, is that you?
It's the devil! The devil is at our door!
Jimmy, is that you?
Well, they would have to guess who was in the costume.
Yeah, so there was a bit of a game. And the really interesting thing is that after they were done, one person from that household actually had to join him, and he would go to the next door. And the same thing would happen. Another person from that household would have to join. And basically, by the end of the night, you have this huge procession going around following this Yule goat figure.
That's fascinating. Almost a little bit reminds me of a form of the Krampus walk.
That's kind of what I was thinking. But going door to door, not just in the streets.
Right. So that's kind of cool. I wonder how many goats they ended up with at the end of the night.
I don't know.
Was it just one person dressing up?
As far as I've ever seen, it's just one person dressing up, and then people join in kind of this loud revelry behind them. But still, it's a bit of a party.
Is that the one where somebody would carry pots around and bang the pots going from door to door? There was some type of caroling or procession door to door in one tradition.
I think that was one of the Krampus
where they would carry pots, and some of them clay pots, and they would bang the pots, and some of them would actually smash the pots.
No. That was to drive the evil spirits. There was like a particular type of evil spirit away. A spirit that was driven away by that sound. And I think I remember that.
But anyway, it's all a very interesting set of traditions, no matter which side of the fence you find yourself on or you find yourself on in history. Just a lot of cool and I think fun events. And it's been lost on us. We don't have that kind of fun anymore. I mean, people still have fun at the holidays, but you and I have been watching the last few days. People just losing their nuts everywhere. I mean, it's just
I still don't
losing their nuts. That's kind of came out the wrong way. Kind of losing their heads.
Those two. I don't know. I personally still, it's too crazy out there. I had somebody ask me if I was going to have a jolly Christmas, and I was like, I don't know, we'll see. What about you? And they were like, oh yeah, we'll definitely have it. And then they started to tell me every single tradition that they plan on having this year.
Oh my gosh.
And I don't know, some people are going nuts trying to force it, and I think a lot of other people are just kind of tired.
I think one of the things we've done as a family is we've stepped back, and of course we're never big into the commercialization. Mm-hmm. We don't do a lot of traveling. I think one of the things we've tried to do over the years, and especially recent years, is step back and look at traditions that we enjoy or things that we want to learn about even, and try to incorporate those into just the fabric of our season. And whether it's certain types of candle lightings or even gatherings or anything like that. I mean, there are some things that we're doing that's specific to our family, and I think that's where a lot of families are trying to feel out how can we recapture the real spirit of the season. It's been a lot of fun. I think we're learning some things, and I think that will eventually, maybe years from now, especially as our little guy grows up, we'll find a whole new realm of tradition in our own family as that family continues to grow. Hopefully it will never lean towards the commercialization and the hairiness of what's outside the door, but it would be cool at some point to recapture something like caroling, whether it be the Halloween season or at Christmas or whatever.
I'd be fine with that. I would be fine with that, not going to Walmart at all.
Oh my gosh, not going to any store, the mall, Walmart, Target, any of it.
And then staying at home and drinking eggnog the rest of the time. I think I'd be all right.
And I'm not against any of that. We give gifts. We take gifts to people. We spend a lot of time sharing with others that we care about or others that we feel are in need. And I think that's fine. I don't have any problem with shopping in and of itself. I just think the psychotic realm that people find themselves in, the mentality that they fall to during this time of year is disturbing. But you mentioned eggnog, and that's another tradition we were going to talk about. Not necessarily eggnog, but the tradition of wassail or wassail.
You know what's really sad?
What?
I haven't had any eggnog this year.
We're about to have some eggnog. We're going to have some eggnog here pretty quick. But
So, yes.
wassail or wassail, those are apparently two correct pronunciations of that word. I'm going to call it wassail just for the ease of it, and especially with the poem that I'm going to read in a minute. But wassail was a drink. It kind of reminds me, as looking up recipes and everything, it reminds me of a type of eggnog.
Okay.
But it's a very ancient custom, but the word comes from the Anglo-Saxon phrase wassail, and it literally means good health. Now, this tradition actually is closer to a New Year's tradition or a 12th night tradition, but some throughout the centuries have kind of stretched that out through the Christmas and New Year's season. But it's a drink, and a lot of times made with an important ingredient is roasted apples. That's a big part of it. Cream, ale, eggs, ginger, nutmeg, sugar, cloves, stuff like that people would mix together and cook up this drink. Now, what they would do is they would fill it with big silver bowls or sometimes pewter bowls, but a special bowl just for the wassail drink, and they would share that with each other either at gatherings or they would take a big bowl of it out to the front of their home and serve people who are walking through the street. And really what it was a toast to good health, a toast to the coming new year. And out of that tradition or that drink, the making of that drink and the sharing of that drink came what was known as wassailing or wassailing, where people would actually go house to house, or they would go to celebrations or festivities or gatherings, and they would share the drink and toast to one another's good health. So a pretty cool tradition.
It is.
And one that's actually still celebrated quite a bit today. You just don't hear a lot about it. I think probably more in Europe. I do know that just looking at this recently, there are groups throughout the U.S. that do this. There are a lot of people throughout Europe. I'm not sure about other parts of the world, but wassailing or wassailing, traditionally done on New Year's Eve or the 12th night, it was known that some people who would celebrate this, who were wealthy, would drink this and celebrate this all 12 nights of Christmas. But because it was quite, back in the day, it was quite expensive to make, and it was a very special drink. But there were three ways of celebrating wassailing or wassailing, and that would be the filling of a common bowl or cup, and they called that the loving cup. And they would pass it around a room and share. Or they would take a bowl, like I said earlier, around houses and share with one another. And then there was another way that they would do this specifically with the fruit trees, specifically with the apple trees, I think is the prominent fruit that they would do this for. They would take that drink and their bowls out, and they would kind of almost baptize or pour the drink over the fruit trees as a blessing for a harvest for the coming year from those apple trees, because those apple trees would feed their coming year's festivities with wassail. So it's an interesting drink. An interesting tradition, and I've actually looked up some recipes, and I found a cool recipe that I like, and we're going to make this drink on New Year's Eve.
Are we going to carry it around to people?
I don't know. If anybody wants it, then call me up. We'll carry it. We'll bring you some wassail.
I was going to say, it sounds like at first it reminded me of the glog tradition where you just get a big bowl and pour a bunch of different alcohol and like drinks in there, but it sounds much more almost sophisticated, but I guess almost sacred.
Yeah. It was very sacred. They would actually get together, the assembled crowds in homes. The lord of the manor would shout, "Wassail," and the crowd would retort back to him, "Drink hail." And it was literally, he was saying, "Good health to you," and they were saying back, "Drink and be healthy." And it almost reminds, I would love to see this like in an Irish pub or something. It almost reminds me of everybody holding up a pint of Guinness and just
a big crowd cheer.
Yeah, just awesome. Blessing or pronouncing good health or goodwill on each other. And I don't think it's a bad thing.
No, that's a pretty cool scene that comes to mind. It's like something out of a Les Miserables or something.
Right, yeah, exactly. There's actually carols that are written for this tradition as well, and especially when people would take it house to house, they would go singing together, house to house. One of the popular carols goes like this, and I'm not going to sing it, but I'll tell you the words, because I don't know the tune. But it's, "Here we come, a wassailing, among the leaves so green. Here we come, a wassailing, so fair to be seen. Love and joy come to you, and to you your wassail too, and God bless you and send you a happy new year. And God send you a happy new year. Kind of a nice, good health and blessing and prosperity tradition that people would celebrate. And I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, it's a whole lot of wassailing, though.
That's a whole lot of wassailing. So what we'll do is we'll actually make this drink this year, try our hand at it. One of the things about the drink itself, they used to call it the lamb's wool, because the froth, I think, that would come up from the roasted apples and some of the mixture, especially with the egg and everything that was in the drink, would look like lamb's wool on top of the drink. So that was pretty cool as well. But we'll make it, see how it turns out. Hopefully our first batch will be drinkable.
It sounds yummy.
If nothing else, we'll toast to one another and have a good time. And if it turns out good, we'll post the recipe maybe on our website or in show notes or something, and everybody else can enjoy it.
Maybe we could even show the process of making it in Cooking with Monster Guys.
Maybe the Cooking with Monster Guys starts with wassailing. Which reminds me, we got somebody from Sweden actually chimed in on our Facebook, the Monster Guys at Facebook, when we talked a few weeks ago about the Yule grot and gave us some information about that. So looking up recipes for that as well. We may just do like Yule grot and wassail and eggnog and all kinds of stuff together this year and see if we can walk the next day after we drink it all down. Who knows? Some spiced ale or some spiced rum or something. I don't know.
I intend on sitting down and relaxing, so I don't really have to walk anywhere.
Yeah. It'd be nice. Well, there you go. We covered a few different traditions and I think brought some interesting perspective from various sides of the world, whether it be Christian or pagan or Scandinavian or European or whatever it was we talked about through each one. But I think there's some cool stuff, and
Definitely.
And maybe along the way we can help people recapture a little bit more of the spirit of this season.
Yeah, and I don't know, after researching all of this, I think I'm going to set out a straw boot. I'm going to have some cookies with my
There you go.
alcoholic apple spiced eggnog, and I'm going to go out on the town.
Very good. Sounds good. And to all of you listening, we just wish you the very best of the season and hope you have a wonderful time with friends and family and whatever traditions you're celebrating. Do it with a merry heart. Don't get caught up in the traffic out there, but just enjoy the time. Take some time to breathe and relax. Go into the new year. We speak blessings and prosperity and good health to you from the Monster Guys. In just a couple of weeks, we'll come back into the new year with our first guest on the show. So we're very excited about that. We'll probably make announcements on that on Twitter and Facebook and on the website. But very excited. We're going to take a week off and rest ourselves. Very good to all of you. Blessings, peace, prosperity, and good health to everyone listening. Good night.
Good night.